don't think there's any wild questions.
All right. Definitely afternoon. Everyone's fine? Okay. Good afternoon, Queensland, and good afternoon, Longreach. And it's wonderful to bring the whole Cabinet to Longreach. And we had a wonderful presentation from the Mayor, and we were going to be hearing more from him a little bit later on. But in relation to our COVID, we've only had one new case in hotel quarantine, which is fantastic. We've had 18 active cases at the moment, and in terms of our vaccinations, we're up to 147,000, so that's good news as well. Well, today Cabinet discussed a number of issues, but most importantly, we were discussing about what more we can do out here in Western Queensland. So a couple of significant announcements, and one that the Mayor had been raising with us. So first and foremost, we know that water security is fundamental. We know that my government has been very instrumental in making sure that we were drought-proofing Warwick and Stanthorpe, and there are issues around Isisford. So what we've done there is today we're announcing $1.2 million to upgrade the weir to provide that security. And I want to thank Minister Butcher for assisting with that. And in the past, we've also assisted with water infrastructure in Ilfracombe, which is very important, and we are now going to be getting a proposal about anything more we can do with the Thompson River. We know how vital that system is for the region out here. We've also been looking at the infrastructure we've put into tourism across the west of this state, and of course we've been seeing the Workers' Heritage Centre and also to money to the Qantas Founders Museum, especially with the magnificent light show where we've invested some $3 million. We also discussed how important health is. We know that every family healthcare is so important, and that's why the Health Minister, Yvette Darth, is fast-tracking, getting underway our election commitment for some dialysis chairs here to be put in place. So that's fantastic as well. So as you can see, we are absolutely committed to this region, and of course this morning we were out at the sale yards with over $3 million going in to make sure that the sale yards are modernised, some extra sunshade for cattle, which actually improves their productivity, and safety for workers as well. So this is investment in key issues that our Cabinet has discussed today. Massive investment in transport, in education. The Longreach State High School, apparently, their kitchen hasn't been updated in 50 years, and once again we're putting in money to modernise that as well. So today, look, it's absolute privilege to bring the Cabinet out here, and Minister Fern will be talking a little bit more about our cluster fencing. Again, that's one of, I think, our government's significant achievements out here. Some 8,000 kilometres, not $8,000, a lot more than $8,000, 8,000 kilometres of cluster fencing, which is bringing back the sheep industry out here as well, where the lambing rates are in excess of 80 to 85%. So once again, that was a matter of people bringing that to our attention and us delivering. So I might hand over to the Treasurer to say a few words, and then Glenn and whoever else wants to talk. There we go. Thanks.
Thanks, Premier. When you come to Western Queensland, you're reminded of two great Queensland characteristics, strength and resilience. Strength and resilience to overcome drought, strength and resilience to overcome flooding, and strength and resilience to overcome COVID-19. And Western Queensland, outback Queensland, weathered the storm of COVID the best of any part of Queensland. And as a consequence, they've helped strengthen our Queensland economy during a very difficult time. And we're responding to that. We're returning that investment back to Western Queensland to support the community. $600 million in infrastructure this year alone. That's going to support 2,200 direct jobs and hundreds of other indirect jobs. As the Premier said, projects in water, projects to support the beef industry here, in particular the Western Queensland Livestock Exchange. The last couple of years have been really tough for the beef industry in Queensland, but we're seeing with the pasture returning, we're seeing with the rains, we're seeing the industry coming back. So investing in that sale yards will help the producers here in the Central West and the local districts, but it'll also help the entire beef production chain, including beef processors. And this week we'll be returning to Rockhampton for the Beef Australia celebration, and all those beef meat processing firms and those meat workers as well will be supported through that. So our government will continue to invest in the community here, projects big and small, because what happens in Western Queensland impacts on our state, impacts on such a positive way on our economy. And as Treasurer and the Minister for Investment, I'm keen to support continuing investment in this region, both public and private, to create jobs and to continue to support the Queensland economy.
Thank you, Treasurer. Thank you, Premier. It's great to be here today with the announcement today, $1.2 million going into Isisford Weir, about an hour from Longreach here, but still in the Longreach Regional Council area. These are the type of projects that councils are looking for us to help with and to help deliver. This project will see the weir made safer. It will see the outside area of the weir better for tourists in the region, but what it will do is give water security to the region for years to come. And talking to the Mayor as well last night and also today, the opportunities that are going forward, they're doing some planning work now on certainly looking to not only make the Thompson River Weir safer, but also to potentially raise that weir and give this community here in Longreach an opportunity in the future for that water security that we know is vitally important to communities, particularly out here in Western Queensland. So it's great that the Premier certainly is very supportive of these water projects. As we've heard the Premier say before, Ilfracombe funding support of $500,000 last year by the previous Water Minister, and now another $1.2 million to secure this weir today. So great announcement, great community and great support from the Council and from the Palaszczuk government.
It's always great to be in Longreach and also good to be here with the Premier and my Cabinet colleagues. And today we announced the 5th round of funding under the QFPI, the Queensland Feral Pest Initiative, at the Savage Butcher Shops. And anyone that's accustomed to Longreach would know the Savages. They're a long established butcher shop right here in Longreach. Last night we had the privilege of toasting some of that beautiful lamb, and that's the outcome when you put investment over $60 million. That's real money in biosecurity in Queensland. $60 million by the Queensland Palaszczuk government. You see the outcomes when you get around the regions through the whole of Western Queensland of more than 400 properties. You're seeing lambing rates, as the Premier indicated, over 80–85% increase. So the real establishment of that cluster fencing right across the west, plus private investment as well, is seeing the income and also the jobs generated by that, but also sheep numbers increasing and seeing the sheep industry come back into the west.
All right, we're happy to take a few questions.
Premier, one of the issues the Mayor has raised is sustainability of both councils. We've supported a general report recently that talked about a great number of them being in financial problem. What will the state do in terms of acting around the sustainability issue and the ongoing...
Yeah, well, the Deputy Premier has carriage for that, so he'll be working with the mayors. In fact, all of the Western regional mayors out here have actually invited me to open their conference later on this month. I'm going to see if I can get there. If not, the Deputy Premier will be going. And also, too, the number one issue that they raised with us is how good the Works for Queensland project is. That money goes into the local economy and it actually generates local jobs. So out here, it's very important for people to be able to get into work and have secure jobs. And as I said yesterday, and I'll say again today, that if people can actually come out here and work, it is a great lifestyle and lots of opportunity that families would enjoy.
Premier, on that, we obviously have people crying out for employees at the moment, but I'm sure if you get a chance to Savo to speak to some of the Western Queensland mayors, they'll tell you even if they can hire people, they don't have the housing availability to actually house them. Is the state government going to do anything to help with that issue? Yeah,
in fact, I met with the mayors last night, so I had the opportunity. The Cabinet engaged over dinner. We talked to a number of the mayors that came and chatted to us about various issues. And yes, and that problem's not unique just out of Western Queensland. We are actually seeing it across Queensland at the moment. We want to have further conversations with the federal government. I think it's absolutely imperative that we work together to look at how we can get more people across Queensland to work in the hospitality and catering industries.
Yesterday, Premier,
Yep.
you suggested there might be an extension of widening of the GP vaccination program. Can you give any more details on
No, I don't have any more details. No, there's no further details because it's something we've put to the Commonwealth, and they'll be talking a bit more about that at National Cabinet.
Because Melbourne, Victorian mass hubs were inundated today, and yet we don't have any.
Well, we will be, I think, if we get it, we have to get the rollout right, and Queensland is a lot different to Melbourne. We are very decentralised, and one of the easiest ways where people know that critical history, individual history, is through their local GPs.
What do you think of Stephen Miles' swift fatality or calling yesterday?
Look, he's apologised for that, and look, he didn't mean it, and I think everybody has a slip of the tongue every now and again.
The Prime Minister says while he accepts that, he said
Yeah.
he has formed, quote, in being a bit of an idiot, and that he has to step up to the responsibilities of the position. What do you say about that?
I'll say that the Deputy Premier takes his responsibilities incredibly seriously. He has been at the forefront too, working with me, trying to get an answer out of the federal government about a regional quarantine facility. For the life of me, I cannot understand how you cannot have a simple answer to a very simple question. Will you allow international flights into Wellcamp? Yes or no? Very simple, and we cannot get a simple answer out of the federal government and out of Scott Morrison.
What do you think with respect to jail or fine in Australia when she come back to New Zealand?
Look, the international borders are the responsibility of the federal government. That is pure and simple. They accept that states have the ability to close our state borders. Well, the High Court has actually found that. But when it comes to the international borders, that is the Commonwealth responsibility.
Fair that Australia should be abandoned like
What I do think should be happening is that if we had regional quarantine facilities, and if you looked at opening up areas like Christmas Island, like Mark McGowan has said, there is good avenues for people to return back to Australia. But once again, these are issues for the federal government. The federal cabinet needs to sit around their cabinet table and work this out.
Premier, when can we see dialysis machines in the Central West?
Well, the planning is now going to be underway, and our commitment was, I think from memory, in the next 2 years, 18 months?
2022.
Late
How
2022.
many will there be?
My understanding is there's going to be 2, but the issue here is we've got to get the staff to come here. So it's about attracting staff. It'll be Longreach, but people will come around from some of the smaller communities and come into Longreach.
What's the issue with staffing? Because I actually know some personal nurses who want to do dialysis and would move to Longreach for the job. Why is there an issue with staffing?
Oh, well, please let them know. Send in their expressions of interest straight away to the Health Minister. She's here waiting, and look, that's great. If there are more people who want to come and work out here who've got the skills, we can actually get things underway a lot sooner. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Premier, the government announced this morning a $10 billion injection to bring insurance prices down in North Queensland for cyclone and flood-prone areas. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I might let the Treasurer address that. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, we're pleased after many years calling on the federal government to act that the Morrison government's finally decided to do something to put pressure, downward pressure on insurance premiums in North Queensland. This is something that Queenslanders, but in particular people from the north and the far north of our state, have been calling for years. So it's good to see this announcement. What we now need to see from the federal government, what we now need to see from the Morrison government is delivery. The announcement today says nothing's going to happen until 2022. That means another cyclone season that we're going to have to live through without that pressure being brought to bear to make sure insurance premiums go down. So we're very pleased to be able to work with the federal government when we see the detail. We don't yet have the detail, but we see this as a positive step forward, and the Morrison government finally taking action on something that Queenslanders have been calling for many years.
The Treasurer, also the Mayor and other communities around Queensland have raised the issue of not being able to get workers in these regional communities. The Mayor here suggested, harnessing the grey nomad workers coming through. Is that issues you need to speak to around taxation with the federal government in terms of resolving some of those issues? Obviously, they potentially affect that super and and other benefits and so forth.
Look, I think there's a whole range of mechanisms that we should be looking at as a nation to try and support ensuring there's a skilled workforce in those communities that need it. We spend $1 billion a year on skills and training in Queensland alone. We announced $200 million additional for skills and training. We've opened TAFE up to free TAFE for young people in our state, and then we expanded that. So we're doing our bit as a state, but we're happy to work with both levels of government to make sure we've got the skilled workforce where it needs to be. But there are multiple responsibilities across a range of governments that will have to be activated. And the federal government, of course, is the principal government in this nation responsible for employment programs. So they spend an enormous amount of money on employment programs each year, and I think they're going to have to look at how do they tailor those programs, particularly to the employment and jobs demand across Australia.
Is there a mechanism for retirees to do short-term work like that?
Last question, everyone.
Look, it probably comes down to that point you make about taxation and superannuation to ensure that people who are willing to work are not penalised through the taxation system to allow them to do that work. So that's a proposal the federal government, I think, should be looking at. If we've got grey nomads willing to stay in a community for an extended period of time to be part of that workforce, then I think we should be encouraging that through the taxation system.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, we'll go to the reception now. Thanks, everyone.